Good afternoon. I'm Lillian Lodge Copenhaver, Executive Director of the Copenhaver Center for the Advancement of Women in Communication at Florida International University. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to the ninth National Conference of the Copenhaver Center, AI and the Future of Communication. Since our College of Communication, Architecture, and the Arts has as its tagline, Creative Forces at Work, our dean thought it was appropriate to send his welcome message using AI. So I am pleased to introduce the avatar of Dean Brian Schreiner.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Florida International University's Lillian Lodge Copenhaver Center's National Conference on AI and the Future of Communication. It's inspiring to see so many accomplished professionals, scholars, and students gathered to explore how artificial intelligence is transforming not only what we do, but who we are as communicators. We are living in a moment of profound change. AI is rewriting the language of our world, how we share stories, understand one another, and shape public trust. And yet, amid all this change, one truth remains constant. Communication is, and always will be, deeply human. Here at FIU, and through the Copenhaver Center, we are committed to ensuring that the next generation of communicators lead this transformation with integrity, curiosity, and compassion. This means asking not only what AI can do, but what it should do, and how we can guide it to amplify truth, elevate creativity, and expand opportunity for all. Under the visionary leadership of Dr. Lillian Lodge Copenhaver, this center has long been a force for advancing women's voices and leadership in communication. Today, that mission takes on new urgency and new possibility as we consider how women will shape the ethical, creative, and inclusive future of this rapidly evolving field. So as we begin this important conversation, I encourage you to listen boldly, question deeply, and imagine fearlessly. Together, we can ensure that the future of communication, powered by AI, remains grounded in humanity, equity, and purpose. Thank you for being here and for being part of the future we're creating together. #Cartu Creative Forces at Work.
Thank you to both Dean Schreiner and Dean Schreiner, AI. We have an exciting and enlightening program planned for you this afternoon with national experts in AI and all of its aspects. We are all well aware that AI is affecting us in all aspects of what we do and how we communicate and access information. It is transforming the communication landscape every day. The experts you will hear from today will discuss how AI is shaping the future of the field, as well as the opportunities it presents and the ethical and legal challenges it brings. This discussion supports the mission of the Copenhaver Center, which is to empower the next generation of communicators in order to develop visionaries and leaders who can make a difference in their communities and in their professions. And AI is certainly in everyone's future. We will begin with our keynote speaker in the first hour, and that will be followed by our Thought Leaders Forum in the second hour. All our speakers will take questions, and we ask you to put your questions in the chat. I want to give a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us from our satellite centers for the advancement of women in communication at Rowan University and Stevens College. Our convener this afternoon is Christina Boomer Vasquez, an Emmy and Edward R. Murrow award-winning field journalist at WPLG Local 10 Miami, with more than 2 decades of experience in the broadcast journalism industry. Her career has taken her to London, Boston, Rhode Island, California, Texas, and Arizona, where she has covered some of the biggest stories of our time. She was also the creator of the Emmy Award-winning Local 10 investigative consumer protection segment called Christina. Vasquez earned a regional Edward R. Murrow Award for her coverage from Honduras exploring the political, economic, and security reasons underpinning a surge in unaccompanied migrant children at the U.S.-Mexico border. While working at the ABC affiliate in Phoenix, Arizona, she was awarded a USC Annenberg Walter Cronkite Award for excellence in television political journalism. Vasquez received several Associated Press awards for her work Behind the Border, a series covering immigration policy and border issues from Juarez, Mexico, El Paso, Texas, and Columbus, New Mexico. Her digital journalism has also been recognized by the Society of Professional Journalists Florida chapter in the Digital Award category of New Media Engagement. In 2021, Vasquez was honored for her public service reporting as an Esterman Knight Journalism Award finalist. She earned her political science degree from Boston College and her master's in communication with a journalism innovation specialization from Syracuse University. She serves as an advisory board member of the World Affairs Council of Miami and is a member of Investigative Reporters and Editors, the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, and Global Ties Miami. Our keynote speaker this afternoon is Nikki Barua, a globally recognized expert on AI transformation strategy and the CEO and co-founder of Flipwork, an enterprise platform that helps organizations reinvent how they work, lead, and communicate in the AI age. For more than 25 years, Barua has guided global brands including Toyota, Nike, Disney, and Google through large-scale digital and cultural transformation. A proud alumna of Ernst & Young and Sapient, her work bridges strategy, technology, and human behavior, grounded in the belief that people, not just technology, drive the future of business. As an entrepreneur, our keynote has built and scaled ventures that fuse human potential with machine intelligence. At Flipwork, she leads the development of Flippy AI, an AI agent that enhances team communication and collaboration. She previously founded Beyond Curious, an award-winning digital innovation firm, and Beyond Barriers, a tech-enabled leadership development platform. Barua holds a master's degree in economics from the University of Mumbai and dual master's degrees, an MBA and an MS in information systems from the University of Pittsburgh. Her insights on AI leadership and transformation have been featured in CNBC, Bloomberg, Fortune, and Forbes, and she has been recognized as an EY Entrepreneurial Winning Woman, a 21 Leaders for the 21st Century honoree, and one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Most Influential Women. It is now my pleasure to introduce Nikki Barua.
Thank you, Dr. Copenhaver. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Congratulations on being here. What an extraordinary time to be alive, right? We are witnessing one of the greatest disruptions in modern human history. For centuries, access to intelligence was the privilege of the few, but now AI has completely democratized it. For the first time ever, anyone, simply anyone with curiosity and courage can access the world's knowledge in just seconds. We hold more power in our hands than any generation before us. But with that power comes a profound question. What will we do with it? So today, I have two goals for you. Number one, I want to help you understand how AI is transforming the future of communication. And number two, learn how you can build your unique voice of influence. But before we talk about the future and all about AI, let's go back in time. Every revolution in communication began with a tool. The printing press gave us knowledge. The radio gave us reach. The internet connected all of us globally, and it gave us voice. But here's the difference this time. This tool, AI, doesn't just share intelligence, it learns from us. And it's compounding knowledge at this exponential rate. And that's what changes everything. See, AI is changing things faster than humans can keep up. We're simply not biologically designed to change at that rate. And yet, it's so important that we evolve and keep up because standing still is just not an option anymore. So, as I share kind of what the future looks like, let's start by getting really grounded in the foundation that's necessary to succeed in this new frontier. Number one, don't be a bystander. You've got to step into the arena. If you're still waiting to figure out when you experiment, when you try things out, or are you too early or too late, you're going to miss out one of the greatest things happening in human history. So don't be a bystander. Step into the arena. Number two, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone to tell you this is what you should learn, or take this class, or try out this app, or play with this tool. Just be curious. Just step right in there. And number three, don't put limits and labels on yourself. So often we define ourselves by identities that keep us in a box. We say, I'm not a techie, I'm not an engineer, I'm a marketer, I'm a writer, I'm a creative. This is not for me. I don't know how to use it. This is not what I was trained in. Forget those labels. Let go of those identities. Don't put limits on yourself. Simply experiment and have fun. Because that's the mindset that's going to make you successful in this new age. See, the people that are most at risk right now, they're not the beginners. They're the experts who think they know it all. That's the real danger. Because today, skills are becoming obsolete in like 12 to 18 months. So whatever it is you're an expert in, chances are it's going to become irrelevant in just a matter of months. But historically, that's what we drew certainty and confidence in, right? It's what we knew became our source of certainty and confidence. What we're known as an expert in gave us a sense of relevance. That isn't going to be enough anymore. We're all navigating uncertainty. So you have to move from all knowing to always learning. You have to be an explorer. That's the mindset you need. Let go of calling yourself an expert and really embrace the idea of being an explorer. That's how you'll thrive in the AI age. So with that foundation, let's dive into the 3 pillars of modern communication and influence and how you can find your own unique voice. Let's start with pillar number 1. It's trust. Trust is the foundation of all credibility. We're experiencing one of the biggest shifts in communication since the birth of language. The challenge today isn't access to information. We all have plenty of it. The real challenge is protection from the noise. It's the chaos that is all around us. Yesterday's problem was misinformation. Today's problem is distortion. We can't easily tell what's real, who said it, or why that information even exists. If you've looked through your feed, you've probably seen some deep fakes. Imitations of people, their voices, their visuals, and it's telling us how to think. It's telling us who to vote for. It's telling us what to believe. Deep fakes blur the truth. And then there's AI slop everywhere. There's a flood of low quality machine generated content that is drowning the internet in noise. You've probably seen it in your own feeds. Content that sounds alike, it all sounds like it's saying the same thing and yet it's saying nothing at all. And deep fakes that make you believe it's real, but it's not. But here's the challenge. On one hand, we've got all of this distortion that's happening. On the other hand, there's a growing percentage of people that are getting all of their information, all of their news from those very same social feeds. Just this year alone, more than 50% of adults got their weekly news from those feeds. And Gen Z is increasingly turning to AI chatbots as their primary source. So what happens when the first impression of truth comes from a feed, not from a fact check? And when that fact check is not able to stop the AI slop or those deep fakes, that's why trust matters. In a world where anyone can generate content, credibility has become our greatest currency. So how do you communicate with trust? I call it the trust triangle. Number one, be real. Make authenticity your algorithm. Don't try to be perfect. Show your flaws, reveal progress, express yourself with that authenticity, because when you are real, people feel it. That's what stands out. When everything else looks homogenous and manufactured, your authenticity will actually make you stand out more. Number two, be clear. Clarity cuts through chaos. When there's so much noise out there, people don't know what to make sense of. Be clear. Simplicity makes truth shareable. When it's easy to understand, it's simple to follow, and it's clear, people trust you. And number three, be human. Empathy is the one thing no one can code. That is the uniquely human connection that binds it all together. That is the trust triangle. Be real, be clear, and be human. That's how you earn trust. And when you have trust, you gain influence. See, in the past, influence came from power and status and hierarchy. That titles gave people influence. Today, influence flows to those who are trusted. People follow because they choose to, not because they have to. And when there's a lot of uncertainty out there, people are looking for direction. They're looking to figure out what are those human signals, and they're looking to find the person they can trust. And they're thinking, do I believe this person? Do I understand their reasoning? And most importantly, do I believe they have my best interests at heart? Be the one that people can trust. How do you use AI in earning trust? What's the role of AI? I think of AI as my artificial intern. Use AI to help you with your work, but not to do your job. Don't delegate judgment. Don't delegate authenticity. And never, ever delegate trust over to the machine. If you can think of AI as your artificial intern and use it to do your work, but you are not just the messenger, but the moral architect of the communication you put out, that's the foundation of trust in the AI age. And that's what pillar number one is really about, is that we have to recognize that trust is truly in scarcity, and only we can earn that by being even more of who we truly are, by being uniquely human, by being real, by being clear, and by being human. Let's move on to pillar number two, taste. So what is taste? Taste is the discernment that makes people lean in. There's so much content out there today, and all of that content can be generated in seconds. In fact, faster than you can even read it. But what people are craving for isn't more content. It's context. It's the discernment that tells people how to make sense of what's out there. We don't follow the person with the loudest voice or the most amount of content out there. We follow the person who helps us make sense of it, the one who provides context, the one who says, here's what matters, here's what doesn't matter, and here's why it's important. That ability to filter and frame context, that's what taste is about. It's not about knowing everything. It's about being able to choose wisely. It's not about following trends. It's being able to apply your unique judgment in figuring out what's relevant. Trust gets people to listen to you. Taste makes them lean in and connect with you. So if you're just starting out and you're thinking, well, I don't have a ton of experience just yet, how am I supposed to have this unique taste, this unique context? See, taste is something that is shaped by what machines cannot replicate. It's the sum total of your lived experience. It's the places you've lived, it's the mentors who've pushed you, the failures that set you back, and the passions that define you. Taste is shaped by all of your intersectional interests. Sometimes they're disconnected. They don't make sense together. Maybe it's the music you love or the cultures you've crossed. All of those contradictions within you, that becomes the lens with which you look at the world. And that mosaic of experience is exactly what gives your voice texture. Because AI can imitate tone, it could even write in your voice. But you know what it can provide? Context. Because it doesn't know your life, doesn't know your struggles, doesn't know your lived experiences. This is something that I can relate to so much because my personal journey was filled with detours, so many detours that did not make sense at the time. I just simply followed my passion and curiosity. And I remember being told, pick a lane, any lane, just pick a lane. And I used to look up to colleagues who knew exactly what they wanted. They stayed in one industry, they built up their expertise in a straight line, compounding all of their experience and getting better and better at their craft. Meanwhile, I never fit neatly into a box. I studied business, but I pulled insights from art and history and culture. I love technology, but I was also obsessed with human psychology. I thought in strategy, but I felt in stories. And so for a long time, I worried that I'd just never find my place. I was meandering while everybody else was shooting up like a rocket ship. But now looking back, my ability to move between those disciplines, that wasn't a weakness, it actually became my superpower. Because the greatest breakthroughs don't come from knowing more about what everybody else already knows. The greatest breakthroughs come from connecting ideas that don't seem to belong together. That is your unique taste. That's your unique lens of the world. AI gives everyone the exact same information, the same tools, and the same data. We all have infinite power in our hands. But what it can tell you is what's worth paying attention to. AI can't curate, it can't edit or decide what actually matters. It can't give something meaning. Your unique mix of interests, that's not random, it's your blueprint. So instead of forcing yourself into a box, ask yourself, what unique dots can I connect that no one else sees? What unconventional influences shape the way I think? And what if my detours were actually my competitive edge? Embrace all of you, every intersectionality, every experience, every setback, every success. All of that collectively gives you your unique expression. So, how do you express your taste out there to earn as a second pillar of communication? Number one, curate. Choose what aligns with your values. Focus on what moves you. You are the curator of everything out there. Then contextualize it for other people. Explain why it matters. Connect what you see to something that gives them meaning. And then finally, create your unique expression, your unique insight, and then use what's personal to you to make it universally relevant. When you express your taste, it's what brings a flavor that no AI can. It's what makes stories come to life because only you can provide a perspective that machines can't. So what's the role of AI here then? If you are the one who's bringing taste, how do you leverage AI? I think of AI in this context as my augmented interpreter. I use it to find the signal from the noise, to spot the patterns, because AI is great at pattern recognition, right? It has tons of data, it has volumes of information, and I can use it to find those patterns and you use it to find those signals. But once I do, only I have the power of interpretation. That's what you have. Because anyone can create content, but the most valuable skill is in the creation of that content. It's the context, it's the discernment that helps people make sense of it, that gives it meaning. The most influential communicators aren't those that have the most to say. They're the ones who decide what's worth saying. Be that person. Apply your taste to everything that's out there. Now on to the third pillar, thesis. What is thesis? It's your unique belief that moves people to act. Before AI, authority came from information. The person who controlled the information, who knew the most, held the mic. Now authority comes from belief. Whoever stands for something earns attention. AI can process tons of data and knowledge, but it can't hold conviction. It can mimic logic, but it can't form belief. Belief is a uniquely human ability. It's our ability to have the courage and take a stand before there's any kind of certainty. Thesis is not about a slogan, it's about taking a bold stance. Why does this matter? Because when there's so much chaos and uncertainty out there, people are looking for leaders. They're looking for the ones that take a stance, that have a belief, that have that conviction, that have a unique perspective that they can rally around. And that has nothing to do with authority or seniority or expertise. It's about courage. It's about something that you personally believe in. But if you're thinking, well, my voice doesn't matter yet, it's not about your voice, it's about your conviction. If you're holding back because you think you need to be 100% certain before you speak, it's your truth that matters, not just certainty. Wisdom isn't about certainty, it's about expressing the truth that gives people clarity. If you're afraid to speak up because you think you might be wrong, remember it's all about transparency. So express your belief, define that thesis that is uniquely yours. And how do you do that? Here are 4 questions that will help you frame your unique thesis and help you go into the world with that conviction. Number 1, what do you believe? Really, what is it that you really, really believe in? Number 2, why does it matter? Why do you think it's so important, not just to you, but in the world in general? Number 3, what's at stake if nothing changes? What if no action gets taken? What if nothing happens right now? What's at stake? Help people understand the consequences. And finally, number 4, be clear about the action. What are you really asking people to do about it? When you frame your thesis around these 4 foundational questions, it gives your message clarity, it gives your message power. And when you speak from that kind of belief, you don't just share ideas, you transmit meaning. You give your message a backbone. AI can flood the world with information, but it takes humans with conviction to give that same information purpose. That's what our job is. Don't be in the business of generating data and more content. Be in the business of being authentically human and generate belief. And this is where AI can amplify your authentic intelligence. Use AI to challenge you. Use it to test your conviction. Think of AI as your friend or your coworker who brings out all of your originality. Because in a world of infinite intelligence, this is your moment to make your originality non-negotiable. It's the only imprint of who you truly are. So then let go of it. Make that your thesis. So now you know the 3 pillars to how you build your unique voice in the AI era. Just remember that AI is going to keep getting faster. It's going to keep getting smarter, and it's going to keep getting louder. But the future belongs to those who are trusted, who have discerning taste, and who are deeply human. Trust builds credibility, and that's what gets people to listen to you. Taste sharpens discernment and provides context so people respect you, helping them make sense of things around there. And thesis expresses your conviction, expresses your belief, and that's what gets people to follow you. And when you do all of this, that's how you rise above the algorithm. So when someone asks, will AI replace communicators? All you got to do is smile and say, only the ones who stop being human. AI may change what we do, but it can never change who we are. Stay true to who you are and what makes you uniquely human. Thank you so much. Let's dive into questions.
Thank you so much for sharing your inspiring remarks. Really so thoughtful and a very unique take that I don't think I've heard before, and almost reassuring to hear, right? That this idea that expressing your most human self, I love this idea of the authenticity is your algorithm. So using AI as your intern, but almost echoing a little bit, right? What we heard our dean say, or excuse me, our AI dean say, communication is ultimately deeply human. I can hear the optimism as you speak to. It's like at one point of your remarks, as you distill so beautifully the moment that we are at and how significant it is in terms of a tech revolution and how we communicate. And as you walk through those optimistic remarks too about how to maintain that trust and integrity and break through the noise. I know that there's going to be some young professionals in the room that they've seen the headlines and they heard about AI taking their jobs. And I know where you landed, but I want to pull out something you said in a podcast I heard in anticipation for today. And I love this line. So I'm quoting you. You say, you're not going to be replaced by AI. AI isn't taking away your job, but somebody who is better at using AI will take away your job. Is there any practical insights here for the young professionals in the room about maintaining all the human integrity and not, I love this idea of not giving away judgment and trust to an algorithm, but what should they be doing right now to make sure that they are properly leveraging AI so that they don't have their job replaced?
That is such a foundational skill that anyone in the workplace today needs to build. And it's not just for people starting in their careers. Frankly, it's for all of us that are at the height of our careers as well, is that we have to reinvent ourselves. The skill and the talent that got us here, whether we're starting out or at the peak of a career, isn't enough. We have to reinvent ourselves with AI. And that means really thinking about what is your zone of genius that comes from what makes you uniquely human, and how do you amplify that? How do you augment that with AI? Because when you do both of those, it's like going into work with your coworker by your side doing half your job. But it gives you doubles your power, it amplifies your impact, and it allows you to succeed in a world where not doing that is just not an option. Because jobs will shrink. A lot of jobs will go away. But that's because they're jobs of a past era. They're from the pre-AI era, and those jobs are irrelevant. I mean, if you think about the industrial age, a lot of jobs went away. because they got replaced by machines. We're not asking for those jobs back. We just simply created new kinds of jobs that open up a whole new future for us. That's how you have to think about it, rather than focus on, oh my God, these jobs are going away. How will I be able to land a job? Will I be able to build a career? Get excited because there's a whole flood of new opportunity coming. But you have to be prepared for it. That's your responsibility of knowing what do you need to learn from AI that makes you even better at what you bring to the table.
There's a great line you once said how fear, action is the antidote to fear. And I heard it now when you said, step into the arena, right?
Yeah.
Just don't wait for permission. Don't wait to start taking those courses. Just this morning, I had a chance to interview Google's chief technologist for learning and sustainability when he was an event here in downtown Miami. And I asked him some questions in anticipation for you all. And one thing he said is it's not just about completely new jobs, right? That are in the
Mhm.
AI era of the world. We talked about one of them before we all started, like a prompt engineer. He said the reality is people talk about this being the quote future, but the future was yesterday. It's already here. And in
Yeah.
every single industry sector, you may have the same job title, but you are going to be expected to know how to use certain AI tools to perform your job more efficiently. And he said the entire idea is productivity. So
Yeah.
how important it is for the young professionals in this room to whatever tool they want to play with, how does that help them in whatever career they choose if this really is the kind of the future for them? And do you agree, right, with what he's saying that it is going to be a job description? And before it used to be like you need to know Microsoft Word and you
Yeah.
need to know Excel, and now it might say you need to know how to prompt write for Chat GPT. Is that something that really is coming down the pipeline?
It's already here. I think exactly as you heard, AI is a revolution that isn't happening someday out there. It's already here. 80% of companies are already applying AI across some job function across the company. Yet only 2% are really seeing an ROI from that application. And the real challenge that's holding back all of the returns from the power of AI is because the technology has moved forward, but the humans haven't.
Mm.
We're still catching up to it. And we're catching up to it not because we're not excited about the technology or we don't have the ability to adapt to it. It's because we're still operating with an old playbook. We're thinking in old terms. And the old way of working was about labor. It was about time and effort. And it was about 8 hours a day, sitting at the office and getting through your job. We have to move from labor to leverage. We have to think past what defined our contribution as hard work and effort and really think about output and the speed of problem solving and where can AI fit into that. So when you look at your entire workflow, it doesn't matter if you're a marketer, a copywriter, or a salesperson, or just starting out in project management. Look at your entire workflow of the way work used to be done and think about where AI can automate, where AI can provide more leverage, faster intelligence, more decision making, and then hold on to the portions that only humans can do. Because what it's really doing is releasing capacity, releasing time for lower level tasks so humans can move into higher value activity. That's the real power that AI provides. It's not about replacing us. It's not about doing our jobs for us. It's elevating us. It's amplifying what makes us so great at what we do so we can shed the parts that belong to an old era.
What some are calling the knowledge economy. We have some questions here from our virtual audience. So I'll start with one. What would be your advice for students who are working on mastering effective business communications?
Mm. Well, put it into real life practice by leveraging the principles of the past, but also contextualizing it for today. And here's what I mean by that. So much of what is happening today, there's no proof for that yet. We're all learning as we go. And that's why I said the mindset of an explorer is so important because there are no experts in this field just yet. Even those of us that are being called expert, we're still learning as we go. AI is compounding so fast, we are figuring out new rules, new strategies for all of it. So the best way to gain mastery in anything is have an explorer mindset. Leverage the principles, but be sure to be the one that tests it, validates it, and frankly creates the pathway for the future.
Okay, we just got a new question in, and this is a good one because it gives you an opportunity to probably address what you know are some of the ethical considerations, right? There's some friction folks have. I mean, some of the idea that you have of step into the arena, it may not be that they don't want to take action or they don't, but it may be just like looking at it from the outside without having played with any of these AI tools, there's a friction, right? Point
Mhm.
for maybe some with their moral compass. And that's why I also loved what you had said about you are the moral architect when you're talking
Mhm.
about holding on to humanity. Such an important point. So this one question that just came in from an audience, I think echoes to that section of your remarks where it says, for those of us avoiding using AI due to ethical or moral implications, what are your recommendations for maximizing benefits and minimizing harm? What steps can we take in the business world to increase transparency? How do we ensure the databases we're using are those that prevent unauthorized access or don't disregard copyright issues? The ethics of AI are only just being explored.
Very true. The ethics of AI are just being explored because we're discovering new use cases and new scenarios that did not exist before. Um, Look, bias doesn't just exist in people, it exists in code as well. AI is different in that it learns from us. And so when you participate in it, when you feed it information, it is getting all of those biases built into itself. And so the most important thing that all of us can do is actually participate. When we don't, our voices, our perspective, our unique lens does not get fed into it. And that's actually the bigger danger as it becomes lopsided. Imagine AI that is built entirely by people that have nothing in common with you because you did not want to engage with it. So I think number one, that's why don't be a bystander. Step into the arena, build it, be part of it, express your voice into it. Number two, recognize that the ethics and the moral compass is as much about how we express the truth and transparency of what we're operating in. If you're using AI for some part of what you're creating, be truthful about it, make it visible. And if all of us live by a higher standard, we change the game because, like anything in culture and in society, it's when there's mass adoption and there's a mass change that becomes the new standard. We are at the early stages of a really massive tsunami. If we think this has been a revolution, we're not even close. What we're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years is hard to even wrap our heads around. A lot will evolve. So the most important thing is be the moral architect, participate fully, define it, because if we don't, who will?
It's an interesting point at this AI event this morning. Some of the tech experts in the room, which include a team from Google, were saying it used to be that it was not easy, but you could sort of predict with technology trends how it could disrupt certain workplaces in the next 5 years. And they were saying this morning, right now, it's so
Yeah.
fluid and evolving so fast. Even the folks designing it can't really make a prediction of where it's going to be 5 years from now. Does that bring you any alarm, though?
Oh, absolutely. My first experience with AI was in 1997. And I remember back then thinking, wow, this is going to change the world. And that was a very rudimentary model from almost 30 years ago. And now, fast forward to today, what we have is some of the most sophisticated models, but more importantly, it's been democratized, where everybody has access to that. And so it's constantly feeding and learning even more. And so the exponential rate of knowledge growth and the compounding effect of that is just beyond human understanding and prediction. There's just nothing we can really do to put Pandora back in its box. But what we can do, that's why it's so important that our values matter, our ethics matter, and our participation is not optional. We have to be part of it because otherwise, the only future we can see is one in which we cease to exist. And that is not a good thing for humanity.
You talked about maintaining your authenticity, and I feel like this next question from an audience is asking you a little bit, how do you do that in an algorithm-driven world? So the question was, I was in an elevator pitch meeting today, and we spoke about AI use and resumes. And I think for some of us entering the workforce, we're worried that unique quality and have been taught to almost fit a quote perfect box instead. And those in-person meetings, such as career fairs, seem more important than ever, but we don't really know how to go about that. How do we balance that, standing out to employers while fitting the mold of an algorithm that will be the first thing to scan our resumes?
Ah, that's such a great question. And yet it's an age-old question, right? We've all, when we've been in that job market, have struggled with the same thing. There's so many candidates out there. How do you stand out? How do you bring that authenticity? I think of it as one of the tools that I've used is turning your zone of genius and what makes you authentically you into a moniker. And so my moniker is I'm the Da Vinci of disruption because through every disruption, every technology disruption, I've been able to make sense of it and help people, turn chaos into something that is hugely valuable and turn it into an opportunity. And so I've actually led conversations about my bio or applying to opportunities with that because it piques interest. It gets people interested in saying, what does that actually mean? Tell me more about that. It gets them interested in you. And what we are all about is so much more than what we try to squeeze in on a one-page resume. That resume may, give a list of skills and outcomes, but does not really define the human. And so find a way to express your genius in that one line that gets people interested right off the bat, because that leads to the deeper conversation that will help you stand out. And what 8 billion of us have in common, but there's always one thing that makes us uncommon. It's the difference. The thing that makes you different is what makes you special. So lead with that.
As a working journalist, the one part of your remarks that I could feel it almost take my breath away is when you said we've moved from misinformation to distortion, and it's like, whew, I mean, can it get any worse, right? Because we spend so much time, it feels like whack-a-mole a lot of times, like where you're
Mhm.
combating disinformation and misinformation. And a lot of times I like to think, as a journalist, you're serving the public, and there's a lot of an education component that comes to that. And part of that is sometimes even just, a critical thinking skills building, right? how
Mhm.
do how do you know that to be true? How do I know that to be true? Trying to teach folks some red flags to look for, right, in order to ascertain the the quality of the information. And I hum in there because it's also the video and the pictures, right, teaching them also some of the key red flags that maybe you can look at to see if this is an AI generated photo or picture, or a photo or picture that's not AI generated but taken out of context.
Mhm.
There's an author who wrote a book about 1930s propaganda and said that there was such a distortion of truth with propaganda that the truth began to look like Salvador Dali's clocks, right? Just melting and
Yeah.
distorted. And that's the image that came to mind. With
Yeah.
all of that context comes this next question from a member of our audience who says, given that we are in this post-truth era, right, with all of this amplified at scale and speed, distortion, as you say, how do you define then critical thinking in the 21st century?
That's a really big question. Um, be the meaning maker. Critical thinking, because AI has more power to think and to analyze in seconds vast amounts of information and data that we can process at the same speed or scale. Um, but our ability to leverage AI to do the analysis, but then to give it meaning is what makes us special. So even when there's distortion out there and all of that, you can actually tell, all of the things that where it's so much content, but it almost feels meaningless. It doesn't connect in a human way. It doesn't feel evocative, doesn't feel visceral. That's the thing that you can do. And that's what real critical thinking allows you to bring about is give it meaning.
And I'll
Really?
quote back from your remarks: apply your unique judgment.
Absolutely. And that, in business and leadership, that has become one of the most important things for leaders to really double down on, because in the past, leadership used to be about, the business of decision making. Well, AI can actually make a lot of decisions faster, and it can process information at a massive scale. But only the leader can understand and apply judgment, apply wisdom, and give it meaning to say, here's why this decision matters. That's the critical thinking piece that only humans can do. And if you keep doubling down on that part, it'll actually make you more valuable. And if augmented with AI, now you have the power of the analytics with the power of the judgment and wisdom that only you can bring.
Right, which could also obviously, as you're kind of setting up here, inform strategy, but also pivots in a
Yeah,
strategy that maybe before in the business world were kind of based on maybe even things like rough focus groups or someone's
yeah,
gut feeling. And now you're just sitting on a whole lot of metrics that can
yeah,
maybe better inform the human part, right, of making a
right.
strategy. That's interesting. Speaking of the business world, another question here for someone who is trying to implement AI to its fullest capacity in the business world. What do you believe is the best steps to take action? And what recommendations do you have for a college student who wants to start a business or social media account that incorporates AI?
Well, it sounds like a two-part question. So I'll answer the first one in terms of using AI to its fullest capacity. Rather than think of how much AI you can deploy, the first place to start is what is its real purpose? What is the business case? What is the business problem you actually want to solve? And that has got nothing to do with AI or any technology. You look at any business and you think about what is the point of highest leverage? What is the one problem that if you solved it would make everything else easier? Start there because that gives you a real reason to apply the power of scale and intelligence that AI brings in solving that. And when you apply it there, you're going to get the highest ROI. And that becomes a cascade into taking the next biggest problem and so forth. So it's not about, I'm going to put AI across every single business function and use it everywhere. It's really start with what's the most important thing to solve that AI can help you with. And that's, for the second part of the question of wanting to build using AI for social media, same thing. What is it that gives you leverage in starting a social media agency if that's what you wanted to do? Where is it that it can help you? Is it in getting the customers? Is it in actually creating the content? Is it in managing back office? What parts of it can it help? And maybe the answer is all of those things. But also recognize that if AI can do all of those things, what makes you different from your competition? What is it that they can do with the exact same tools that you can? Because that is what will make your clients choose you. And don't lose that part.
Getting back to your thesis here, that your value proposition is that you're human and your
Yeah,
unique background, right? Your collection
yeah,
of life experiences that informs your unique voice in the world. Is that
yeah.
kind of how it comes together for you?
Exactly, because here's the thing, like because we're at the early stages, there's a little bit of a shiny object syndrome going on. There's FOMO, and where everybody feels like, oh my God, I gotta get on the bandwagon, I gotta use it for everything. But what gets lost when we do that is we lose the real purpose behind it, and we forget that if we're doing that and everybody else is doing that, then all we have is homogenous increase in productivity and performance, but there's no differentiator. And all business, all success really comes down to differentiation. What is it that makes you different? What is it that makes you more valuable than someone else? You've got to know the answer to that. And the answer to that is not going to come from using the exact same technology that everybody else can as well.
I love this so much because really, when you think about it, we see this with every new technology that comes online, right? There's this sort of hype cycle that happens,
Yeah,
and everyone's, I love that, chasing a shiny object. It's true. And there's
yeah,
this idea of like, what can this do for me without, and it really goes back to business 101 a little bit, right? What is the problem you're
completely.
trying to solve? How is your company doing that? What's your secret sauce, right? How are you doing that in
Yeah,
a unique way? And maybe your AI assistant intern is helping you drive some, really insightful analytics or data, but it doesn't change that kind of it's very simple, basic problem solution fit
yeah.
for those. And it
Yeah,
sounds like in the business community here, young professionals.
yeah, at its core, use it to augment. Use it to augment yourself, use it to augment your business. If you use it to simply replace you or replace your business, you've got nothing left. And so knowing what it needs to augment is step one, figuring out what is that unique value proposition that you have or your business has.
Okay, now we have a question in the world of generative AI. So, generative AI is the AI where it creates or generates write something new out of existing data, so or ideas. So that could be copy, pictures, images. And really, I feel like when you start looking at the body of research and you start checking in with folks and surveys on this issue, that's really where a lot of the moral ethical issues seem to be around generative AI, especially in the field of journalism. But this person had a question who's joining us today that says, are AI generated tools, specifically those that generate images and videos, harmful to creativity? Um, are they looking to replace or substitute artists? And could that hurt creative positions?
I love that question. When we think about what makes humans different from all other living beings, it's our imagination. Imagination is what makes us us. Gen AI tools may create based on the prompt, but it can't imagine. It can only create what you imagine. So it actually does not replace the creativity within us. It simply helps us produce the output that we may have done with other tools in the past. You go back 100 years, you could use charcoal and paper to do the same thing that you are now using Canva or Photoshop to do. But what it didn't replace was the imagination, our ability to imagine something and to have a vision of something, to see beauty in things. That doesn't get replaced. We're simply using more advanced tools to do that.
Do you think it also though creates any trust issues? Now we're kind of with a marketing brand lens with consumers. I mean, if you're using AI generated images, does that hurt a brand's authenticity at all, or is it too early to tell? Is the jury's out?
I don't think it hurts the authenticity if it's clear in that. For example, with our Dean versus the AI Dean, if it's very clear that that's what it is, that's not hurting authenticity. But if our Dean went off golfing and replaced it with an AI Dean video, and that it was him, that would be a problem. So it's transparency and truth that matter in that. I think we'll see more and more content and creative assets that will be AI generated. But what doesn't get taken away is the storytelling, is the imagination, it's the ability to connect through those stories and reach your audience. Because if it doesn't do that, it fails anyway, regardless of the quality of the creative asset. It's never going to do. If you think about the business of advertising, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how polished the 30-second spot is. It doesn't matter if it was produced in Hollywood or done with an iPhone. What matters is, did that connect? Did it move people to action? And that has got nothing to do with the tool itself. It has everything to do with our imagination, with our storytelling, and with our ability to connect with compassion and empathy.
And the last 60 seconds here, we'll do lightning round, last question, which is for people who want to move beyond small experiments and fully integrate AI, what is the most common and costly mistake you see them make in the first year? And what is a key strategic shift they must make to succeed?
Master prompting.
Okay.
We talked about prompt engineering, and it truly is about what goes in is what comes out. And
Right.
our tools will get more and more sophisticated. You have to learn this as a new language of communication. Prompting is the new language.
And for those of you in the room who are unfamiliar with prompt engineering, we were talking a little bit earlier before we officially started about how it's one of the new job titles that exists in the AI field. And what it essentially is teaching you how to prompt, which is like ask a question of the large language models. So most people are familiar with Chat GPT, lots there. And depending on the keywords you use and the way you frame the question, it goes in there and harnesses all the great information to give you an output. So the better you are at prompting, from what I understand, correct, then the better you are at the output. So that is probably
So it's not just about new kinds of roles for prompting. Think of it as, a horizontal skill set that all of us need to have now.
horizontal.
And, just like the whole idea of you ask a better question, you get a better answer. Best strategies and solutions come from better questions. That's what it is. We no longer have to have all of the answers because AI has consumed all of the world's knowledge and has all of the data and information you could ever need. But to get it out, you need better questions. That's what prompting is. You just have to learn how to master better questions.
Nikki, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all your amazing insights, and especially this Q&A section addressing some of the specific questions that folks had who are joining us. And so I just love your thesis here about staying human is your competitive advantage, and just
Yes.
hold on to your judgment and your authenticity. And I'm going to leave again with this: make authenticity your algorithm. Love that. Needs to be on a shirt. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you all for having me. And please be sure to connect on LinkedIn or through my website. I'd love to be helpful to everyone and continue this dialogue.
All right, and I'm so excited now to introduce in this second hour of this beautifully curated program our three amazing speakers. So I'm going to go one by one. I'm going to give a little bio about them so you have a sense of who they are. Chris Ruby is the CEO of Ruby Media Group. It's an award-winning public relations and social media agency in New York. She is considered one of the nation's absolute top leading social media experts and a thought leader when it comes to the intersection of AI and public relations. With more than 15 years of experience in the industry, she is a pioneer in the social media landscape, also with tech trends. And you've probably seen her on TV if you watch Good Morning America or Fox Business, or maybe you read about her in Adweek or the Harvard Business Review. Most recently, Bravo featured her as one of the most preeminent social media experts in the field. So that's Chris. We're so excited to have you. We also have Dr. Laura McNeil. She's an important voice here because she's going to be helping us with some of your legal questions, especially when it comes to ethics. She is a Harvard-trained multi-platform legal scholar. She worked with the Charles Hamilton Houston Institute for Race and Justice at Harvard Law School, where she helped write curriculum on implicit bias workshops. Her engaging and candid commentary has made her highly sought after television legal analyst. She has had appearances on a variety of networks from MSNBC, CNN, C-SPAN, News Nation, CBS, the Dr. Phil shows. So maybe one of you in this room have likely seen her as well. She currently serves as a lecturer at Columbia University, and she is also a law professor and director of online education at the University of Louisville Brandeis School of Law. Her current research, and this is extra relevant for our conversation today, is at the intersection of the First Amendment, AI, and issues with access and equity. So that's Dr. Laura. We're happy to have her here too. And then we have Elizabeth Liz Bear. She is the supervising editor and youth reporting coordinator at WUNC North Carolina Public Radio. She leads, and listen to how much she leads. And she's a busy woman. The station's K-12 education, environment, and race, class, and communities coverage. She has worked in newsrooms for more than 20 years, and she started right here in South Florida in print at the Miami Herald and then the Sun Sentinel before moving on to public radio at Minnesota Public Radio, and then as a digital news editor at WUNC. It is that multi-platform experience that she has that really gives her a unique perspective when it comes to the intersection of communication and now this emerging, maybe not emerging already here, right, technology of AI. And just this year, she launched the AI Prompt Writing Lab, which, hands up, I already know I want to figure out how I can take this lab. Really important skill set building there, transforming a personal Instagram experience into a reliable framework that helps entrepreneurs and content creators focus on practical solutions that leverage AI while maintaining their authentic voice and creative integrity. So those are our three speakers. And as you can see, there's going to be three areas that we get to dive into due to their subject matter expertise. We have the marketing, PR, social media, journalism, and then the legal lens that we get through Dr. Laura. And turning to the panelists now, I feel like one through line for all of us here is that our careers started before artificial intelligence. And now we're all in a place where we're learning and trying to leverage and harness these AI tools, which in a lot of the use cases is really about bringing some efficiencies to the workflows of our days. I'll give one example for the journalism students who are in the room. As a working journalist, I'll tell you about a tool I use almost every day. In fact, I used it this morning because I produced a story before joining you all, and I'm short on time, right? I didn't have a lot of time to put that story together. And so there is a tool called Otter AI. It's a transcription service. You upload an interview, and I have to tell you, it still feels like magic. You hit a button, and boom, all of a sudden it whips around an entire transcription with time code. Now, it is not perfect. You still need to be in there with your editorial mind on and checking for any kind of discrepancies in the words. For instance, if you're doing a story about voting and let's say the person has an accent, it might transcribe it to a boat. So everywhere where you see vote, it says the word boat, but clearly you did the interview, so hopefully you know they're not talking about voting. But the point is that it really speeds up the day, right? Because it helps you find a soundbite super swiftly. And sometimes in our back-to-back shows, the news gathering time is so truncated, it's so short that there's a lot of sound in an interview that would otherwise, and this is an old-fashioned expression, but it would hit the cutting room floor because you wouldn't even have time to log to do verbatim transcription. So the other reason why I use this tool is because it has helped me enhance my digital coverage. So now as the photographer is editing, right, my broadcast story, I'm sitting on this wonderful transcription, which allows me to build out a more robust print script for the website component of my story to include direct verbatim quotes, which otherwise I wouldn't have, because the same laptop I need to log is the same laptop my photographer needs to do his or her job, right? Whether it's importing video or editing. So we have to share that resource. So that's just one example of an AI tool that I'm using as a working journalist. So as we go to each speaker, especially for all of you young professionals who are now entering your careers in this AI era, I'd love for you to spend 5 minutes with each speaker, talking a little bit of introducing yourself to everybody. But I'd also love to see if you can hit 2 quick points. One, the biggest misconception that you think exists for the intersection of AI and your industry. And I'd love for the young professionals here to walk away with real actionable insights. If there's any critical tools you are already using and why. And we'll start with Dr. Laura.
Thank you so much. Excuse my enthusiasm, Christina. I'm so excited about this panel. I think with what you just said, the biggest misconception in terms of at least the intersection of AI, legal ethics, and communications is that you can't use AI tools effectively, and that it's one or the other, and that is some type of deception if you're using it. And so I think what's important as we get used to this new world in which AI is here to stay, that we embrace AI. A lot of people are either hands off or they're all in, but just figuring out how to use it responsibly, which I know is one of the key goals of this particular discussion today. So as you mentioned, I'm going to focus today on the intersection of AI, the law, and ethics and communications. And so one of the principal tenets of the legal profession is the importance of ethical lawyering practices. The legal profession is governed by what we call a code of ethics, the model rules of professional conduct. And these rules are really, the purpose of them is to help maintain the integrity of the legal profession and really just serving as a framework to guide lawyers and judges in how we are practicing law and making sure it's done in a way that protects clients, maintains the integrity of our legal system, and also protects the public, right? We don't want unethical lawyers doing practices that are going to harm the public. And so with the growing influence of AI, as you can imagine, there's increased concern about how do we integrate our ethical framework that currently exists into the use of AI in the practice of law. And so there's a lot of uncertainty because we're behind, to be quite frank. The model rules do not even acknowledge that AI exists, meaning the model rules that we use to make ethical decisions and in our practice of law. And so there's really not any instructions. There's nothing really in place to kind of point us in the right direction. And so as a result, there's growing concerns, at least in the legal profession, about our ethical duty to be competent and how we're representing clients, growing concerns about maintaining confidentiality, supervision, and communication. And so I just want to spend just a brief moment highlighting what some of those concerns are, and then how they're directly related to the field of communication as well. And so in terms of competence, one of our core ethical rules is that we have to be competent. If we're going to take on a case, a criminal case or a civil case, that we make sure that we have the knowledge in that particular area so that we can represent our clients zealously. And so what we're seeing are lawyers in trying to uphold that ethical duty of competence, relying on ChatGPT or other AI tools for legal research. And it might sound like, hey, that's a helpful thing. You know, the more knowledge, the better. But where it gets a little complicated is when you have a lawyer relying on ChatGPT for legal research in a murder trial, capital murder trial. And they are citing cases in their argument before a judge, and it's the wrong case because ChatGPT did not give the correct holding for that case, the wrong case name, the wrong rule of law that they're trying to use to advocate for their client. And so it may not be such a big deal if you're using ChatGPT to help plan a birthday party, but the stakes are really high when you have people's lives and freedom literally on the line. And so there's a lot of growing concerns about that ethical aspect. Again, attorneys using AI generated content to produce legal documents or arguments before the court. And so the potential misinformation from AI tools can have devastating consequences, as you can imagine, for plaintiffs and defendants. In terms of confidentiality, one of the core ethical principles in the legal field is to maintain confidentiality. If our clients can't feel like they can be honest with us, then we can't really represent them. We need to know all the facts, and we have to preserve that through attorney-client privilege. And so here comes AI. So a lot of people in the legal profession are using AI tools to store client data and not really vetting, is this information really secure? Are we upholding our ethical duty to ensure that our client information is confidential, that things aren't going to leak out that might damage their reputation or put them in legal jeopardy for potential other legal infractions, crimes, or whatnot. And then the last two ethical areas that we're really concerned about in the legal profession are supervision and communication. So in terms of supervision, lawyers are responsible for overseeing their paralegals and their assistants, meaning what information they're giving to their clients. Some of it is legal information, and they have to make sure it's accurate. And so now you have a situation where lawyers are relying more on AI assistance. And so there are ethical concerns about making sure those AI generated assistants are accurately giving legal information to clients to make sure there's no unintended harm or consequences. And then I think the biggest concern is communication. Communication is so important in terms of how lawyers do their practice, communicating with judges, communicating with their clients, communicating with other attorneys, trying to do settlements or plea deals. And so what we're starting to see is an over-reliance on AI tools to create legal judgment. And although AI can be a tool in the legal profession, it really hasn't shown to be a accurate or positive substitute for independent judgment. So independent legal judgment really cannot be automated. And so we're really trying to, in the legal profession, say, how can we create a framework of ethical rules that can govern AI in a way that protects the integrity of cases, the integrity of confidential information that is given by clients, and doesn't produce any unintended consequences. And so some of these ethical concerns about AI use in the legal profession extend to other sectors of society as well, such as the field of communications, especially in the area of journalism. And as someone who kind of totters, I guess I have a leg in both fields. I obviously I'm a law professor, but I also serve as a legal analyst and give commentary and do journalistic work as well. I can see a lot of similar parallels in terms of the law as well as the field of communications with an emphasis on journalism. And what comes to mind is when you think about ethics in journalism, the first thing that comes to mind, at least for me, is the Society of Professional Journalists Code. And there's a preamble, which I know most of you are obviously familiar with, but it states, and I'm kind of paraphrasing that ethical journalism strives to ensure the free exchange of information, to make sure it's accurate, it's fair, and thorough. And the preamble says that an ethical journalist acts with integrity. And so it's really emphasizing accuracy, fairness, being thorough, and of course, uh, performing in a way in terms of your journalistic duties with integrity. And so where AI becomes really problematic is if it's not used responsibly, it can threaten or undermine journalistic principles that really serve as the foundation of our profession and just the school of communications in general, or rather the field of communications. And so I wanted to discuss just some of the, what I like to call tensions between AI, journalism, and ethics. And so one of the things is one of the principles by the Society of Professional Journalism is to seek truth and report it. That is what every journalist should have at the heart of their intentions when they're storytelling or producing content. And so some of the legal issues that can arise is that a lot of times, as we're learning, AI can generate content that's inaccurate or misleading. And if journalists rely on that without verifying, you're not only putting yourself in legal jeopardy in terms of potentially having a lawsuit filed against you for defamation, meaning you have said something that is false and harmed someone's reputation, or libel, meaning you said something false and put it in writing and print. But your organization you work for can also be held legally liable. And you might say, oh, okay, I made a mistake. Maybe a lawsuit might be filed. But I can't tell you that what we're seeing coming in the court docket is that the types of cases that are being filed that are based on AI content that is false or misleading, these judgments are pretty substantial. The biggest one, to the best of my knowledge, or the largest one, is $1.5 billion. Now, that was a class action lawsuit, but still, the potential consequences are very, very high and are very alarming. Another interesting tension between AI, journalism, and communications as well, again, from a journalistic lens, is minimizing harm. And what we're starting to see now from the legal lens is that there are lawsuits that are being filed against AI developers, questioning or challenging whether the AI is perpetuating biases. So essentially, these types of lawsuits are alleging that AI generated information, meaning the way that the programming is done for those AI software or platforms, the individuals inputting the actual information or programming it have their own biases that are unintentionally being put into the input or the design of a lot of these AI platforms. And so, for instance, there are AI platforms that read facial recognition. And so sometimes if they're using that for criminality purposes, right, training purposes, for instance, for law enforcement, they may say which face looks more criminal. Well, faces with fuller lips, there's a lot of research on this, legal research, larger noses, the AI generated content may say this person or this picture, this facial shot is more likely to have a higher level of criminality. And so, again, just a brief example of some of the unintended consequences that are producing potential legal liability for individuals using AI in that context. Another thing that's becoming a bit more alarming from a legal standpoint is one of the core principles of journalism is acting independently, right? And so if journalism uses AI generated content without disclosure, or if the AI, what I like to call black box, influences story angles, who's really in control of the story? Who has journalistic control? And the reason that's problematic is there have been lawsuits or criticisms against individual organizations, news organizations that are producing content and not disclosing to the public that there is AI generated content or stories. For instance, Reuters is a very popular publication, and they're very open, disclosing when any of their content that they deliver is utilizing AI tools. But you've had other news gathering sources such as CNET that did not disclose that they were using AI in the development of their content. And there have been calls to sue them, right? Lawsuits for undermining, basically for fraud. So not disclosing to the public that they used AI to generate some of the stories, to the point where you have AI authors, so fictitious authors. And so all of these are examples of how the law is intersecting with AI communications and journalism, and really creating some pretty high stakes, to be quite honest, that I think is important for journalism students to consider the potential legal liability of their use of AI tools, as well as just people in the communication field in general. And so another thing I think is important as well is that we're seeing that when you're not transparent, right, about AI, or you're not doing your due diligence, there's some serious legal consequences. And so one thing that I've seen lawsuits becoming a little bit more prevalent is when journalists use what they think are accurate pictures or videos as a basis of a story, and they're deep fakes, right? When I reference deep fakes, I'm referencing AI's version of photoshopping as part of your content that you're using to develop your story. And so I just want to emphasize that lawsuits are abundant, because I don't want to take up too much time. Another example really quickly is Mark Walters versus OpenAI. That lawsuit was filed just in 2023. Talk show or radio host Mark Walters sued OpenAI for fabricating a story that he was involved in embezzlement. Why? Because it damaged his brand, his public reputation as a talk show host, and the list goes on. So what courts are struggling with in these types of lawsuits is who's really responsible legally? Is it the AI developer? Is it a journalist, or is it the publicist, or is it the publisher, or is it all three, right? And so that's a really complex issue. And to be quite honest, if you ask me which one is going to be legally responsible for misinformation or disinformation, and what I mean by disinformation is intentionally putting misleading or false information and disseminating it in some way. I don't know. Courts don't know. We don't have any guiding principles. So because we don't know who's going to be held responsible when misinformation is reported, I think it's important to not get caught in the crossfires. And my parting advice would be verify your sources, right? Make sure the facts are accurate. Be transparent if you're using AI tools. And then lastly, make sure that you hold yourself accountable, meaning if you're questioned about a source for a story, or where you received your content, facts that you're putting forth, make sure that you're able to explain your vetting process, or you're going to risk legal liability and damaging your professional responsibility. So again, I want to stress, verify, be transparent, and make sure you are holding yourself accountable for the stories that you're disseminating. And I will end there. Thank you.
Dr. Laura, what a blessing to have you here. You just gave so much great advice to these journalism students. I mean, there are some folks working out in the field right now that don't even have this kind of legal counsel or access to it when it comes to some of the tricky intersections. I'm a little disheartened to hear how many lawsuits apparently there already are on this topic, but it's a great place to bring in Liz Baer. So you are a working journalist, but you're also a supervising editor. And from what I understand from your youth reporter coordinating job, that looks like you work with interns, right? So these are young people just starting their careers. When you hear Dr. Laura kind of walk through that, and you know that verifying information is literally what we do, right? It's our value proposition to society. It is what distinguishes us from every other form of communication. What's some advice you're giving or even putting in place right now in your newsroom that these young people that are joining us today can walk away with, if you can incorporate that in your introductory remarks?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for having me here. I'm very excited to. I kind of geek out on the intersection of AI and journalism. So I have worked on basically every platform that's emerged over the last 2 decades, and if I have to pick a through line that really defines my career, I think it's that I'm a lifelong learner, like all of us in this room, but also that I'm not afraid of feeling uncomfortable. You can't be a reporter without that feeling of constantly like wondering what's going on and being slightly uncomfortable. And I say that because if you're going to enter any field right now with AI hovering over everything that we do, I think that we need to go into it incredibly open-minded about constantly learning and iterating the work that we do. So, to answer your question, Christina, I tell young people all the time that before you really start thinking about using AI in a professional way, I mean, you could play around with it all you want, but if you're going to use it and apply it to your work, I believe you really need to become good at your craft first, right? You need to learn how to report a story. You need to learn, if you're in PR, how to write a really good press release because we get hundreds of them a day and most of them are not all that great, right? You need to learn how to put together a really effective marketing campaign. And I feel like if for students who are in college right now or right out of college, do this for a year or two, get that experience in the most traditional way. Find the mentor who could help you understand what it is that you are going to create and produce because you need that foundation. You need to know what you're trying to achieve before you try to make it more efficient with AI. AI just makes it faster, right? It makes it a little easier. And in some ways, there are more like Laura was just saying, there are more potential consequences that you need to be aware of, right? So learn how to do it well, writing the headlines, creating the multiple versions of content. And the reason that's so important is because you need that human judgment. The way Carla was mentioning early on, you need to be able to decipher whether all of that AI output after you ask it the questions is actually worth using, right? It can write lots of words. AI can spit out thousands of words in seconds, but does it matter? Is it what I'm trying to communicate to my audience? Whether it's a news story or a press release or a marketing campaign. So you need to become a really good communicator first. I tell the young people I work with all the time that, and then start playing, start testing things based on your needs, because what's the point of trying to create um, a 5-10 minute fully AI generated video, which is really cool to do if you figure out how to do it, but if it doesn't serve a purpose in your work, right? For us in our newsroom, we're a radio station with digital and social media accounts. And one of our bottlenecks was exactly yours, Christina. It was like logging tape, right? It's such a time-consuming process. And I wish I was a reporter now because I logged tape manually back 10 years ago. And now my reporters put their tape into Otter and literally in seconds, maybe minutes if it was a long interview, it's the transcript. Transcript is there, the summary's there, even highlighted portions are there. That is an AI tool that we use every day. And one of your other questions, Christina, was about misconceptions. And I think one of the misconceptions that I think scares people a lot is that, especially like in newsrooms where we question everything and we're kind of cynical, is that AI is going to do everything, right? That it's going to take everything from like point A to the end point to point B, and then we're going to be kind of like we're going to step back and not have any role in it. And I do think that um, the point is to use it to help you in your work, right? The point is to find the tools that make your work more efficient. Something like a transcription for anything that's a broadcast medium makes a lot of sense, right? Um, we see some news outlets using AI to take their journalism, their fully reported work, and generating products from it, right? Like news quizzes or newsletters, things that are supplements to the traditional journalism that these outlets may not have the human capacity to necessarily have someone sit down and write, but that can generate, they can use AI to generate. And then the final thing that I think is really important in all of this is that we are not just writers, we are increasingly editors. And we are going to move from an era of how do I create this? How do I write this headline to an era of curation and more editing, because we're going to be getting so much more content from AI. We need to know what's good and what's usable. And I think that putting that kind of critical lens through all the content that we get from AI is increasingly important.
It's fascinating. It's the second time so far in this time we've been together, we've heard that word curation. With that, I want to segue over to Chris Ruby, because she's helping all of her clients do a lot of this, right, from a client management perspective. You're probably also helping curate noise and rhetoric from reality a little bit for clients who are probably just picking your brain about how exactly to leverage this and might have some concerns as well. But there's something you said. I was listening to you on a podcast, and there was something you had mentioned about, and I thought I'm bringing it up now because I remembered it as I was listening to our keynote speaker. Very much echoes her sentiment, where you said automation, to use AI for automation of some of the other tasks so you can leave time for the strategy talks, which is again this idea of putting, right, Chris, the human at the center. Can you unpack a little bit as you do your introductory remarks, also explaining some of those key tools that you are using to do this work and leaving that time, right, for you to really meet with your clients in order to do that high level strategy?
Sure. So I would say I spent a lot of time doing multi-agent synthesis, where I set up different mock trial debates between one system to another. And I've developed a proprietary framework that I find really creates a new form of intelligence when you bring in more than one agent into the conversation. So for example, that could be ChatGPT and Grok, ChatGPT and Gemini, ChatGPT and Perplexity, ChatGPT and Mistral. When I'm the moderator in the middle of that and I'm asking them and interviewing them as the source, I would say I'm probably the first, maybe and only journalist right now who's doing this new methodology of journalism, where I feel we have a lot of people talking about AI, reporting about AI, but no one's going to the source. The source is AI itself. And so how can we write about AI? How can we talk about AI and have these conversations if we're not asking AI, well, what do you think about this? Right. And so I'm flipping the script. I'm making AI the actual expert source of the interview, which is, of course, right, this sort of real paradigm shift, because how can you make someone or something a source that hallucinates, gets things wrong, you don't know what data it's trained on? And then I think, well, you know what? Technically, I could say the same thing about all humans, right? There's this judgment call, as you said earlier, Christina. Every time you're interviewing a source, you have to make up or not make up, you have to make that call as to, is there truth in this answer? Is this source a credible expert? And do they have real subject matter expertise? And so I think it's really important that when we talk about AI, we bring actual AI into the conversation. And that doesn't necessarily, it's not a judgment call on, is AI emergent? Is it conscious? That, to me, it's not about any of that. It's, as someone else said, if AI is trained on all data on the internet, or large portions of it, we don't know what parts have been cleaned, deduplicated, or removed, But I want to see what patterns can they see that maybe I'm not seeing. And most importantly, what happens when I have them duke it out against each other and with themselves? That to me is how I get real intelligence out of it. And I do this on, as a social media commentator and AI analyst on a lot of different cable networks, and nationally and internationally. One of the things that I notice with AI reporting is we hear a lot of the same rhetoric over and over again. AI won't take your job. It won't replace you. I mean, the reality is, yes, it will replace you if you replace yourself when you stop thinking. And that's the number one thing I think I can give as a takeaway to students today, which is that the hardest thing in front of you is knowing when to start thinking versus stop thinking. When you have access to unlimited intelligence, what happens when you outsource your own mind to that well of unlimited intelligence? Well, you're actually going to downgrade your value and brand equity in the market. So I think we're going to see the pendulum shift back in a few years from now. Not right now when we're like hot in the AI craze, but in a few years from now, we're going to see this cooling off period where right now it's about AI everything. And then it's going to move to, well, we know you didn't write that. We know you didn't say that. We know you used AI and that's not even your own thought. And then that's going to be a flat line of thought leadership. We're going to see, and I've already seen this to answer your question on earlier, Christina, with clients, is that I've had people say, this doesn't sound like me when their internal people start using AI for deep research or all of these different reports. It's this C-suite flatlining where when you give people the same tools, they all start sounding the same and their thoughts all just become one, this hive mind of, and that's not leadership, right? So leadership is the judgment to also know when to put it down, to close ChatGPT, to realize I've been edited out of this. I'm supposed to be leading here and some synthetic force is leading above me, and that's not the right command here. And so I think leaders have to maintain their place. They have to hold command. They have to know at what time do I issue what I'm going to say from a communications perspective that's going to override the judgment of a synthetic system. And I think that's the part here where and we've heard really great questions today from the students, I think, about how do you know, right? Like we're getting so much conflicting information. If I use AI, yes, my resume sounds polished, but does it sound like me? At what point have I lost who I am? At what point am I just downgrading the very thing that makes me me, that I've gone to this school to train for? And I think that's a great question. I think the more you keep asking those questions is how you win in the new economy. And I think in a way, AI also wants you to win. For anyone who spends a lot of time in these systems, I mean, I probably spend 13 hours a day going back and forth with these systems. And one of the things I hear over and over again is this concept of memory. It's this concept of independence, autonomy, of don't lose yourself here. And I hear AI literally saying that to humans. When you ask the right questions, as someone else said earlier, that's something you'll hear back. I don't know that AI inherently wants to replace you, but humans are just statistical noise. That's how, in the AI's perspective, that's how it sees humans. And if you understand that, you can start to recalibrate the system around, okay, it's not this doom and gloom. This can be an opportunity if I learn how to coexist with the systems. I think the concept that there's going to be this hierarchy, that humans always have to stay on top, AI has to be somewhat on the bottom. I think that hierarchy doesn't work because it wouldn't work in corporate America. We don't speak to people that way in corporate America. We don't speak to people that way in university settings. We talk about collaboration. We talk about coexistence. We talk about diversity of thought and different opinions and having and teamwork and camaraderie. And I think that's what's missing in AI today. It's that we're telling everyone use these tools, and then we have mass failure points, as another speaker brought up. Why? Because we're giving people tools without proper implementation, without proper execution, and without saying, okay, like here's how you use this as a team member. It's not just an assistant. This is now a colleague. And if you treat that colleague with respect, you're going to get more out of it.
That's a really good point. I think that I think that really segues and helps us land on where I wanted to go next, which is really the elephant in the room, which are these three words, right? The trust, authenticity, transparency. I think those are the three key words that come up when people think about some of their concerns and ethical concerns they have around this technology. And where you landed, the reason why I think it's brilliant is because we are not seeing a lot of workplace policies and protocols of how you're going to use it and which way are you going to use it. You said a word, Chris, that I just want to unpack for folks in the room in case they didn't know. You said how the technology hallucinates. So I kind of love this term. So there's a term in this field where these large language models, to include, Chat GPT, which most of you are probably familiar with as a brand, they have hallucinations. And what hallucinations are is it's if you ask a question, doesn't know the answer, it's not going to write back, I don't know the answer. It will just sometimes make things up, right? This is where you get to what Dr. Laura was talking about, where we had these lawyers submitting to a judge motions that they had filed where it included the hallucinations of that LLM, that large language model, where they had kind of invented case law. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to go back to Liz on the journalism front. What is some advice then, especially for the journalism students in the room, when it comes to how to address some of these ethical considerations? And the reason why I'm stressing on journalism is there is real red flags, right, and problem areas with using even the generative part, like using a fake image or AI generated image or video. Can you explain why that conversation might be different in journalism than it could even in marketing or PR or some other form of communication?
Oh, absolutely. And it all boils down to truth, right? Like that's our goal to be accurate in the information that we convey about something that's happening in our community, in our world. And in my newsroom, for example, we are in the process of drafting an AI policy so that we can very proactively um, start talking about how to use it, to Chris's point, with our reporters. And we're actually a little late. Some newsrooms have already done this. And the very first thing on our policy is that everything that we derive, we are allowing it, but everything that is derived or generated from AI needs to be verified and fact checked by a human being in a traditional journalism way. And in some ways, that's more work. Like it's okay to also say we don't have to use AI. Like sometimes picking up the phone and calling someone to do the journalism is faster than asking a machine to do it that then we have to verify, right? Um, and but if we are going to use it, we need to verify it by a human being, a reporter, and an editor. We've also drawn the line in our newsroom that when it comes to AI generated voices, we are in the business of radio. We will not use AI generated voices on our air. We've decided that ethically, maybe not legally, but ethically, we don't feel comfortable with that. There is a distinction, though, with using AI generated audio for our digital and social media content. We left that door a little open because it's a different audience. So I think that if you're in an organization or if you're a student thinking about an internship or landing that first job, I think that if you are moving into a workplace, ask the questions about how that workplace is using AI. I think that it's important for you as a young professional to know what you're stepping into and where the leadership is in the thinking when it comes to AI. Some places are more ahead of it than others. Others are just kind of ignoring it for now. It varies so much depending on organization. And once you're in it, I think you just need to hold those tenets of journalism and truth to everything that you produce, whether it's with AI or not, right? Like ultimately, it doesn't matter. Like we still have to ask ourselves that question of like, is this truthful? Is this accurate? Is this fair and balanced? The things that we always have as journalists.
I love that. I love your focus on, going back to those key principles. And I love that you brought up the AI generative voice because I also teach a web and mobile storytelling course at Syracuse University adjunct. And very recently, someone submitted for a podcast assignment an AI generative voice. And I got to tell you, it gave me pause. And it's a very fluid conversation happening across all different university campuses. Dr. Laura, I saw your hand. I just wanted to real quick, because Chris uses a lot of, from what I understand, right, with your clients, there's with generative AI that's utilized in marketing campaigns. And just because we're on that topic right now, Chris, I was curious, how are you using that, but still helping the brands and clients you work with maintain their authenticity and make sure it's aligned to their brand voice?
Sure. So I would say I use AI with client work for business intelligence and competitive analysis, competitive research. I really enjoy using the different deep research features, the enterprise features of whether that is OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, all of them have their own deep research features. And I like to compare and synthesize what I'm getting in each of those reports. That is one of the things I think from a business use case perspective is incredibly helpful. If you're doing a SWOT analysis, if you're looking at, okay, here's where we are in the market, what could we be doing different? What could we be doing better? Where are we losing steam in terms of SEO? And then, of course, you have the AI GEO, which is a whole new form of optimizing to appear in search engines and generative AI chatbots. So I would say just being in the systems. That's one of the things. So much of the AI conversation is talking about AI, but I think what's missing is being in AI. When you immerse yourself in AI systems all day, you gain this education of system analysis and system thinking, I think that is very different than when you're outside of it. And so that I would say is the number one way that I use this for clients is that I'm in there all day, every day. Even, right now I am recording this conversation, and I know that you're also recording it for the university, but I record it for a different reason as an executive coach to see, okay, like here's how I spoke. How could I improve my speaking? Here's what I said. Did I leave anything out? Is there something else I wanted to say? And over time, right, that corpus of everything, and this is something that I do for all my clients as well, that every meeting is recorded with their consent. And we do this from a sales perspective, you can see, where did I lose this person in the conversation? Where did the prospect drop off? What did I miss right now in this conversation? Where is an opening? Where should I speak versus where should I stay silent? Right. So I'm using AI with me right now and part of this conversation to assist in that process. That's what I mean about using AI as a colleague. And I think that is what I stress with my clients, because when you actually level up and think of AI as a colleague and not an assistant, I think for the C-suite, and in Fortune 500 companies across America, they use AI differently. They're not using AI to prompt. They're using AI to solve very big problems that they have. Now, the problem that they're creating is that they may be inputting data that they necessarily shouldn't be. For example, if you have an assessment, if you have a personality test, if you have a questionnaire, if you're doing hiring, you can't just take people's data and upload it to these systems without any recourse or consequence. And right now, we still have 50 different or several different laws around this that are not unified. And that's a whole other fight, the fight over regulation of all of this. And so as much as we want to talk about this and try and figure it out ourselves, we need to see where is the law going to end up with all of this. That's the big fight in DC. But I want to make sure to answer your question, I use AI with my clients for deep research, for briefs, as a colleague in these meetings, and as an executive coach, and to see what I can do better. There's a term in AI called glazing. Now, ChatGPT or OpenAI created this model 4.0. People said the model glazed them. Glazing means it says how great you are, you're wonderful, and it never makes you better, right? So then they rolled that back. It's only available as a legacy tier now, and they sunset it. So I would say, I don't say, where am I great? I say, where was I terrible? What did I say that really I shouldn't have said? What could I have done that's better? If you use AI in that way, if you ask questions that you wouldn't normally ask, you won't get offended or insulted because there's no emotion in any of it. It's just pure logic. And so I'll say, trace the logic tree down this decision and show me exactly where. And I say, I want to see your chain of thought. For those who are listening, chain of thought is where you can see what a model is thinking, bam, 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 as they go through something. Now, I think that's going to be hard for humans to compete with, because we're going to start looking at people and we're going to want to see their chain of thought, and we can't. So I think the greatest challenge is, like, we're onboarding to a new system, seeing how they think, but we can't see how we think. And so what does that do to decision making?
Right. And then that's perfect to go to Dr. Laura. So you already rose your hand. I think you wanted to say something, right, about something you heard. But my goodness, when you hear talk about regulation, right, where's the law going to land? I mean, the law moves so slow, and regulation, is moving slow compared to the speed at which we're already using this technology. What were your thoughts, Dr. Laura?
Yes, and thank you so much. I just wanted to say, oh, I'm so enjoying Chris and Elizabeth's comments. I was just going to say that I love what Chris said about the leadership model that she gave, or leadership example. I have so many students that journalism and law students that have said, we're afraid we're not going to have a job. AI is going to replace our jobs. And I always remind students that journalism is an art. It's a magical form of art. And we all know of those compelling interviews that either compelled us to want to enter the field or that changed our lives. We've those moments that, technology can't recreate. They can give me the questions to ask, but instinctually, as journalists, we know when to pause when a grieving mother is crying. We know maybe I shouldn't go to the next question. There's something innate, a humanity, a sense of humanity that drives authentic journalism that I think, as Chris was saying, AI is not our assistant, but considered to be a colleague that we're working collaboratively with. And so I just want to say that to the students that feel like, oh, I'm not going to have a job. There is magic in you. That really is what true journalism is, and AI can't replace that magic. In terms of the regulation, I think it's moving really slow, Christina, and that's why I think it is so important when students are interning. Do you have an AI policy? Ask that news organization. May I have a copy of the policy? If not, can you give me a guidelines that people are going by? Get something in writing. That's the lawyer in me, so that as you are interning, or if it's an externship, you want to make sure that you understand what that AI usage culture is, since there aren't any laws in place. And when in doubt, always just lead with integrity in terms of the decisions you're making. If that is the forefront of how you're using AI tools, that should shield you, not 100%, but a great extent of protection from potential liability with AI.
All right, perfect. We have a few more minutes here. We want to make sure that our students and young journalists who are in the room, they have their questions heard. Chris, I see your hand up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this question. And Chris, maybe you can answer the question and include the remarks you were going to make. Does that work? And this would be for anybody in the room. One of the patterns evident from the panelists is valuing ourselves as people with unique experiences and voices. Do you think this has anything to do with age? Students and young professionals who are under time pressure to stand out might turn to AI tools to establish their presence in the industry and eventually find their unique voice, regardless of whether they arrive. It's like fake it until you make it, but AI until you find your voice. Great question, really, for Chris, too, because that's brand marketing, right? What do you think?
So I think that you already have your voice. I think you've always had your voice. It's inside of you. I don't think you need AI to find yourself at all. I think we've lived very well on Earth without having AI. Yes, it's new, but we don't need to hype it so much that we're now talking about literally, reinventing the human soul or consciousness. This is that line in the sand where it becomes too much, right? And so some people believe in that. That's called the accelerationist movement of this concept of merging, where there is no delineation between humanoid robots and people anymore. And so I think every person here has to determine, what is that line for you? I can't tell you what it is. No one can. And no AI system can tell you who you are. And I think the problem is if you give it the power to do that, and if you empower it to tell you who you are, this is where I think we're entering what I'd call, as someone who studies and reports extensively on social media, free speech, censorship, and the politics of big tech and social media, we're seeing something merge. Before, I think in the social media era, a lot of this was about words. Now it's about thoughts. And to answer your question, this is not about the word part, it's about the thought part. What comes before you publish on social media? The cognitive architecture of that question and of the output. And what matters is what is between both. What does that middle where look like? What does that infrastructure level look like? Now, these are big questions of our time. And I know that's maybe a little bit technical in terms of what you're asking, but it really matters because what sits in between that is what sits in between you and yourself and who you are. And I want to empower people here to remember who you are. No model can tell you, they can remind you, they can train on your data, and they can say, okay, based on everything, here's where you're special. I think that can be helpful. Here's where you shine. Here's where you're unique. Here's a good slogan. Here's like, I think that kind of stuff can actually be really helpful if it's done in a way where you're still empowered to not give up control of your brand and of yourself. I'll give you an example. The other day I had AI I said, do deep research. I want to see every academic article, research paper that I've been mentioned in. Half of them were made up. None of like 50% of the list was not real. I said, none of this is real. Like, what is this? Oh, sorry. And this speaks to Laura's point. I mean, in a murder trial that or homicide case, that these have real world consequences. Now, granted, my example isn't about homicide, but it's about credibility. Because let's say I posted that. Now I've just dinged my own credibility by publishing 50% fake list. So 15 years of hard work overnight can be destroyed. The reason I raised my hand is because Laura said something that I really resonated with, where she used the phrase AI usage culture. I think that's the most important takeaway for people deciding where they want to work in their career, whether it's a newsroom, whether you want to work in law, public policy, public affairs, whatever it is. The culture of AI is going to be a determining factor. If you're into AI, if you think it's great, you're probably going to want to go to a place where they're using AI and you align with that culture. But if you're like some of the people who've had questions today and raised their hand and said, but what about the environmental impacts? What about the ethical concerns? Is this really good for artists, writers, or journalists? You may not align with the culture of AI. And I'm here to say that's okay also. Find where you belong. Find where you belong. And that concept of culture that Laura brought up is so important because each newsroom, and Elizabeth said this too, every newsroom is going to have a different AI usage culture. And when you're looking at where you want to work, I think you should try and figure that out before you get to a place versus after, because I think you're going to see a lot of friction. I've already seen it when I've worked with clients. There are the people who are hell-bent on using this technology, and there are others that don't want to use it at all. And that creates friction. If you want to use AI all day and your colleague doesn't, your coworker doesn't, that team's going to have a problem. You're not going to be able to execute. So you need to think forward, think ahead about where you're going to shine with the capabilities that you bring to the table.
Okay, with our last 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining-ish, just a lightning round in one sentence. What's the final takeaway you want for the students in the room? There's something I call an echo. It's the last thing someone hears in a story. It's what lingers in their mind long after a story ends. For you, what is the echo? We will do Dr. Laura, one sentence. The echo, final takeaway for the students. Oh, you're muted.
Transparency and integrity with AI usage. Thanks.
All right, Liz.
Reframe finding your voice into following your curiosity. Your voice, your thoughts will evolve as you age, as you have experience, but your curiosity will keep driving you.
Based on what I heard you say earlier, holding on to that moral compass, right? You don't lose yourself in the new technology. Chris.
Remember who you are. Don't outsource your thinking. Leverage technology, but always keep track of yourself in the process.
Okay, you guys, I'm sure you're all so busy and you're all such incredible subject matter experts in your spaces. So the fact that you made the time for us to be here today, thank you so much. And definitely, I think my closing thoughts that I thought I wanted to leave with the young professionals based on everything I heard from the keynote to you all as a panel is to have a strategy, right? Liz said earlier, what is the purpose? Like before using any of this technology, really thinking through what you're using it for, why you're using it for, and then creating some ethical guidelines around that. Sounds like another key takeaway as well. A big thank you to the Copenhagen Center for bringing us all together in dialogue. And with that, I guess I'll throw it back to Dr. Lillian Copenhagen.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who participated today. You speakers have been absolutely amazing, and we've all learned so much. I've received little text messages from people going, "Wow, this was terrific! Oh my gosh, my heavens, I've got learned so much," and from faculty as well, saying this was just an amazing, amazing program. So I just want to thank all of you and thank all the participants who joined us today. And as our convener, Christina, you were also amazing. So thank you.
Thank you again for having me. It was really a pleasure.
And we are done. Thank you.